Magnan, Chair of the Inland Wetlands Commission, calling to order the May 25th, 2025 regular meeting of the agency. Lisa, could you please call the roll with the note that Mr. Bohave, Mr. Black, and Mr. Ritchie are all excused?
Sure. Daniel Bedecker? Dan?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yep. Jim Connors?
Here.
Matthew Connors?
Aye.
Steve Munson? Julie Valvo?
Here.
Buddy Field?
Here.
Ray Gradwell?
Here.
Brendan Magnan?
Here, thank you. At this time, I'd like to appoint Mr. Gradwell and Mr. Field as voting alternates this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Rose, can you introduce the general reminders?
Yes, I can. As we continue to host remote meetings, we wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a few guidelines to ensure business runs efficiently and that all statutory and administrative rules are followed. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and the Governor Lamont's executive orders, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website. During this meeting, if members of the Inland Wetlands Commission would like to speak, please utilize the raise your hand feature via Zoom. All participants will be muted during the meeting unless recognized by the chair. After being recognized to speak, please state your name and address prior to making a statement. Speak only to the items in the jurisdiction of the MIWA, wetlands, brooks, rivers, flooding, and wetland habitat. Zoning issues are not under our review. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite everybody to unmute themselves and join me by standing and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
Pledge
To the
allegiance
flag
To the flag of the United States
of America,
and
to the republic
Republic
for which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Great. Thanks, Mary Rose. If we could now share the agenda. And if everybody could go on mute. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. Item D1, Mary Rose, can you introduce this one, please?
This is the violation for work within 100 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the Indian River watershed without permit at 64 Quarry Road. This was issued on 3/29/25, and it was upheld and modified by the agency at the 402 meeting. At that meeting, the agency modified the order to require that properly installed sedimentation erosion controls be put on the site to prevent material from entering the wetlands by 410. That self-fencing was installed. It needed a little adjustment. There was an area where it wasn't buried appropriately, and hay bales were added in the sloped areas. So that was correct and done. We were required to hire a soil scientist or professional wetland scientist to determine the current limits of the wetlands on the property and propose a mitigation plan. William Kenny Associates was hired for that. Their report was submitted on 5/11. And an additional report was submitted this afternoon, and those documents are in the meeting notes. By 5/12, they were submitted an A2 survey with T2 accuracy, performed and signed and sealed by a professional licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. And a survey by Paul J. Stoll was submitted on 5/11/25 and is in the documents. And by 5/12/25, they were to submit a detailed mitigation plan and planting plan for review and approval by the MIWA to restore the wetland. The plan to be designed by a professional wetland scientist and included a minimum that changed slightly. William Kenny Associates responded to the discrepancy in our wetland line shown on the plans from 405 and 409, and the status of the site and any impacts from the work. So that is in the documents, and that was submitted this afternoon. And just to note that the property owner needs to obtain all permits, including but not limited to inland wetlands, planning and zoning and building that may be required to resolve and legitimize any site work. I've spoken with Mr. Lee several times since the last meeting on the status of his site, visited the site a few times, and reviewed the best way to stabilize the area and to protect the wetlands. Mr. Lee has been working with his consultants to meet the agency's deadlines for compliance, as was noted above. And he sent photos of the site this afternoon, which are in the meeting documents. And he also submitted site photos from Sunday, showing that grass has stabilized the majority of the disturbed areas. He was having a little bit more loam and seed put down today by his landscaper. So this evening, Mr. Chairman, we have William Kenny and Jackson Smith from William Kenny Associates to address the agency.
Thanks, Mary Rose. Mr. Kenny, do you want to address anything additional to what Mary Rose just reported?
Yes, I'd be pleased to add a little bit more information. Good evening, Bill Kenny. I'm a professional wetland scientist and soil scientist with the office in Fairfield. And I agree with everything that Mary Rose stated. And if there's been any delays, it's primarily been my fault from just being overly busy with other things and trying to address these things as quickly as possible. But I want to just let you know it has not been the fault of the owner. In my opinion, he's been very active in getting in touch with us and asking us to hurry along. And so we apologize for any delays in getting you our documentation. But we were able to get out there and flag the wetlands. And it was almost exactly 5 years ago that we flagged the wetlands at the property before the house was built. And I don't believe we were involved with the permitting for the house, but we just did the wetland mapping at that time. And so we were just back in April of this year, flagged the wetlands, and we were able to determine from the location of the wetland boundary and then existing vegetation that remains, that it was clear to us that the work that the property owner did, Mr. Lee, did not encroach into the wetland itself. Through the initial permitting for the house, there was a requirement for the markers that you often have homeowners install, the 4x4 wooden posts with a sign. So this property includes several of those posts. And so he did go beyond the location of the posts in that one area on the side of the house, but it did not extend into the wetland itself. And now he has stabilized that area, and the posts are in place. And we've had communications with him where he is interested in putting a split rail fence in place of those posts, just to really protect him and protect you and protect the wetland. If that's something that you find acceptable, he's prepared to do that. So I think that's all I have to add, except I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks very much, Mr. Kenny. Mr. Lee, is there anything else you would like to address? If nothing else, I will turn it to the agency for any questions they may have.
Not at this moment.
Okay, thanks for all of your support during this process. To the commissioners, are there questions that you may have to either Mr. Kenny or Mr. Lee or Mary Rose?
through you, Mr. Chair, just to show the agency the level of stabilization. These are pictures Mr. Lee submitted from today that show the area well stabilized. Unfortunately, Mr. Kenny's flags aren't visible, but I believe they're
To the left there.
to the left in this area. From looking at the map, the posts are here. The disturbance limit is the red line with the circles, and the wetland line is the blue line with the triangles.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Rose, for the orientation. Appreciate that in the photos. Mayor Rose, in your expert opinion, would you recommend allowing for the fence? Do you think that's a good approach? It seems valuable to me. What do you think?
I think if Mr. Lee's willing and able to put up a fence, I think that would prevent any future homeowners from putting the markers up, taking the posts down and filling in that area. The area is well stabilized. I don't think we require any additional plantings, and it's really up to the agency if they feel a split rail fence will better protect the wetlands on this site.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Rose. Yeah, I'm a advocate of that fence being installed so long as the markers are put on it from the post, and instead of putting those markers, those wetland boundary markers, affixing those on the split rail fence if the owner is going to proceed with that.
If I may.
Yes, Mr. Lee.
I've talked to a contractor, and so in terms of scheduling, we should be able to get that down in a month if that's approved.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the agency?
I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Chair, I think what Mr. Lee did was excellent. He remediated everything. Actually pretty impressed, and shows that he's putting his best foot forward in correcting an unfortunate mishap, but things happen, and he hired the right people to make sure it got done correctly.
Appreciate that sentiment. I was going to say the same, Mr. Field, that Mr. Lee, you hired the right experts to support the remediation and the activities. So I don't think there's any reason we would want to keep this violation open. Do you agree, Mayor Rose? There's nothing outstanding, correct?
I agree. There's nothing outstanding. The site is stabilized. The wetlands are protected. I would suggest, just so we get through this, torrential rain stuff that we're going to go through for the next few weeks, to leave the silt fencing up, just so that the grass can finish stabilizing the area. I defer to Bill, but I think that's probably a better way to make sure everything stays and doesn't slump. And then I can wait and inspect it. You can release it this evening. You've got several options tonight. You can modify to release it this evening. You can modify it to release it once I inspect the split rail fence, or you can agree that the fence will go in and release it at that time.
I feel that your inspection would be a good idea,
Agreed.
and that way it's done.
Yep. So I would recommend that someone read a motion along those lines.
I had written Chinese menu option of motions. The first one called to leave the erosion controls in place until at least June 1st. And then added additional requirements. That added any additional requirements is the installation of the split rail fence with the boundary markers.
Right.
I'll make a motion if you'd like. I don't have the actual motion, but I would make a motion to leave the silt fence in place till the fence is installed, and then Mary Rose inspect it, and then we release the violation.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. Do we have a second on that motion?
I would second it.
Mr. Field seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Kenny, thanks for your expertise and your great work on this.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Our
it.
pleasure to help. Glad it worked out. Have a good night.
Thanks, Mr. Lee, very
Good night.
much for, as we said, your diligence here, and we'll expect this to get resolved in a timely way, and we'll be done with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Can I just confirm who that second was?
Mr. Field.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to E1. Mary Rose, do you want to introduce this one, please?
Sure.
Sir,
This
am I
is
excused from this? May I be excused? Kindly. now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you don't need to
Thank you
say
very much,
All right.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Thank
you
you.
can if you'd like, but thank you again.
This is IWC 25006. It's 0 Cascade Boulevard. It's a violation issued on 5/12/25 for work within 100 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the South Central Shoreline Watershed without permit at 0 Cascade Boulevard and the adjacent property owned by the Ryder Woods Residents Association. The Milford Police and Public Works Departments received and investigated complaints of dumping on 5/4. Those were forwarded to me. I spoke with Mark Pucci, the owner of the property, who the police spoke with on the 4th, who said it was his property, so he felt he was capable of dumping on it, and he had permits to work on it. Just going to share the map so you can refresh where we are. There we go. So I spoke with Mr. Pucci on the 7th, and he stated that he would have the material removed by the 9th, which was the Friday. I called him early, or I texted him. His messaging was full early on the 8th, and asked that it be removed as soon as possible. We had a potential for 3 inches of rain overnight, the 8th to the 9th, and into the 10th. Mr. Pucci said they had been working on it since 7 a.m. that morning to remove the material. I was unable to visit the site until late on the 8th and found that the 2 locations of dump material on Cascade Boulevard property and Ryder Woods Residents Association property had not been removed or stabilized. I told Mr. Pucci he needed to properly install erosion controls before the rain event on the 9th. Since he had crews in at 7 a.m. on the 8th, I assumed he could get crews in at 7 a.m. on the 9th. So I went back around 8:15 on the 9th and found the material still on site with no erosion controls. Mr. Pucci sent me some pictures at 9:42 on the 9th and showed hay bales. They were installed. They're not installed properly or particularly well, but they did do some assistance in preventing erosion into the wetlands and the stream in that storm event. So what you're seeing, the plans from his application for 0 Cascade Boulevard that this agency approved late last year, earlier this year, are in the documents along with my sidewalk notes. My recommendation would be to have the remainder of the material and debris removed. He'll need to obtain permission from Ryder Woods to perform that work on their property. I had thought Mr. Pucci would be here this evening. He is not. Mr. Wassmer, who presented the application for 0 Cascade, is with us. The plan you're seeing tonight is a sketch I drew on the Connecticut Civil Group's site plan SP1 from that approval. And it basically shows approximately, in the photos I take, which I'll show you in a second, We've got a telephone pole and then an area of debris that goes down to the stream. You'll see some skunk cabbage right at the edge of the fill here. You'll see a tree that's got fill up to halfway along its edge. That's that same telephone pole that I was circling on the site plan. And here's the fill coming down the slope. This is that fill going further on behind where I was standing in the previous photo. That's that same tree with the fill up to its, filling over its roots. If you go down to the bottom of the slope, you can see the skunk cabbage. Beyond that, it seems to be a drainage course or an intermittent water course. Hay bales were put here around 9:30 on the 9th, I apologize, and remain. This pile is around the corner. This pile is on Mr. Pucci's property. It's on the curve. Some of you may remember parking in front of this building when we did the site walk. This looks like it's a similar picture. You can't see it, but wetland flags 22 through 24 are in this general area. So this is within the 100 feet, not as close as the previous pile. This is looking down the slope at the pile. This is after some of the debris had been removed by Mr. Pucci's crew. This is what remained of the debris. And just for location purposes, this is the near map program. This is Cascade Boulevard. This is the building across the street. This is the area where commissioners parked for that site walk. This is the telephone pole I was speaking of. You can see the intermittent water course there. It goes into the other water course that goes off onto the site. And the fill pile is roughly, if this is a telephone pole, it goes roughly in this general vicinity. And that's the fill pile that's on the Ryder Woods Association property. We come back. This catch basin is about the end of the Ryder Woods property. And over in here, somewhere is about the location of the remainder of that fill. The other fill pile, I'm sorry.
Mayor Rose, can I ask a basic question? Just in relation to the conversation you had with the owner, Mr. Pucci.
Mm-hmm.
He acknowledged that, he and his team came before us, reviewed a plan, and did he acknowledge why he isn't following the plan that was approved?
Mr. Pucci said he was getting ready to start construction on the site. I reminded him that he would need to post a bond and pull the permits before he did that. He said, but he was going to need fill on the site and he needed to move that fill, so he thought he would put it on this site.
Which those activities were not approved as part of the plan.
There is fill. There's on the site, the area I'm tracing with the cursor is a wall that there will be fill on this side of the wall. Unfortunately, the piles he put in aren't anywhere near where he's the proposed fill is.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so and what was his response to that?
He apologized for not taking the permit out first.
Okay. And Mr. Wassmer, are you here to represent him, or in what capacity are you here?
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer. To a certain extent, yes. So I just texted Mr. Pucci, and he said he was having trouble logging into the Zoom. So I can't really speak much for him beyond that.
Do you want to give him a phone number? Do you want to give him a phone number to call in?
I can try send it. I'll send him the link again. I don't know.
Is there a so you can call in via phone? Is that what you're saying? I just normally do the Zoom. If you tell me the phone number, I can text it to him.
I'll text it to him. I'm going to text him a picture. I'm sending him an email and I'll text him a picture of it, Ron.
Of the phone number?
Yep.
For some reason, he said he couldn't get into the Zoom meeting. So,
There may be a technical issue, so that's why I was suggesting the telephone number. Maybe the fastest way.
Okay.
But there's a password and a conference ID, so
So it's multi-step.
so we give you an opportunity to communicate that and just take a breath.
sure. I'm texting him now saying that Mary Rose is sending you a phone number.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gradwell.
Yeah, those locations look awfully weird to me. I think you're for piles of fill or dumped fill or knowing where the development's going, and looks like the parking lot and retaining wall, as Mary Rose had described, pretty far away from any of those activities that may have been permitted at one time or maybe permitted a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I can't recall if you were involved in this particular application, but
I wasn't. Yeah. Mhm.
and the point you're making, which I'm making, is typically there are designated locations for temporary stockpiles, so those are not designated areas. Those are not designated approved areas.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will make a couple statements to the on Mr. Pusey's behalf. So this violation was brought to my attention on last Friday, May 16th. I was doing some work for Mark. He has a property on Rosemary Court. And he said, "What are you doing next Wednesday?" And I said, "Why?" He's like, "Can you come to the wetlands meeting with me?" And I'm like, "For what?" And he said, he told me this situation, and he briefly described his phone discussion with Mary Rose. So shortly thereafter, within the next hour, I took a quick visit to the site. I see the two piles. I agree with Mary Rose's approximate locations of these piles. I asked Mark why he did this, and I'm going to use a word, I think, basic lack of understanding of what his permit requires. And then, so I think he believes or thought that because he got the approval of the application, that gave him permission to start the work. Now, these two piles were brought here by a couple laborers that Mark has working for him, and he directed me, said, "Bring the material that you have in your truck over to my property on Cascade Boulevard and dump them, off the edge of the road," which I'm going to acknowledge is a mistake on his part for not having a permit. The location of that getting put on the Ryder Woods, I'm going to say, is a lack of understanding on his workers' parts. It doesn't change any of the facts, but that's that.
Right.
So on that Friday, I did go to the site. I did see that hay bales were installed. Mark had told me that he had installed hay bales. He had commented that Mary Rose told him they weren't installed properly, and that so there's supposed to be two double row of wooden stakes driven through the hay bales to secure them to the ground, and there is no wooden stakes through the hay bales. So it's a Mary Rose statement that they're not installed properly is correct. One plus side of this situation is that I didn't observe, and this was after the rainstorms, I didn't see where any sedimentation had eroded. Oh, Mark said he's on now. I didn't see where any sedimentation had eroded off the piles towards the wetlands. And I'll stop if Mark is here. Let him speak, or you can ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Westmer. I don't see him yet.
I didn't let him into the meeting, and I don't see him on the participants list.
Okay.
Unless he somehow logged I sent him the Zoom link. Unless he somehow logged into YouTube, he may be able to watch it, but he won't be able to comment unless he
Okay.
calls in.
Well, he texted me, he said I'm on, but apparently he's not on. So I can only go so far with the technology. So that's my observations. I will get together with Mark tomorrow and more thoroughly. Mark says he hears it, but he can't, so he must be on the YouTube. I'll get together with Mark tomorrow, more clearly go over things that he should do, but prior to doing anything, I will have a discussion with Mary Rose also, and perhaps we'll get the wetland scientist or the wetland biologist involved also. Other than that, I don't think I have too much more to add, but you're welcome to ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wassmer. Appreciate you making those observations. It does seem like there's a lack of understanding. So for the sake of clarity, it would behoove you and Mr. Pucci to get with Mary Rose and ensure that Mary Rose's expectations are satisfied. She's acting as our duly authorized agent. So Mary Rose, is there anything else you wanted to add to the record?
Nothing really. I think the sooner we can get ensure that the erosion controls are functioning, throw core fiber log behind them, do something to make sure we don't get anything in the stream. It's got a little further to go for this pile that's on his property, but to more so protect the Ryder Woods property. I spoke with the Ryder Woods Association president. She couldn't be here this evening. She had a previous commitment. She obviously has concern about dumping on her property. They're also, Ryder Woods residents are also very sensitive to the environment. They know they have the threatened and endangered eastern box turtle on their site. That was acknowledged by Mr. Wassmer when he drew the plans for Mr. Pucci, that there needs to be protections and concerns when you're working in this area, especially at this time of year, to protect those threatened and endangered species and ensure that we don't have any more dumping on the site until protocols are in place to make sure that they're not going to injure a turtle. This evening, the agency has several options. This is the 10-day hearing for this violation, so you must take an action this evening. You can uphold the violation, which was written to cease dumping and to put erosion controls in place. You can uphold and modify it to order whatever you wish, or you can release the order, but you must take an action this evening.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion this evening that we uphold the cease and desist. You want me to read the
Thank you.
whole motion?
Yeah, there is a motion that's drafted by Mary Rose. Just glancing at the draft. Before you read the draft motion, Mary Rose, is there anything specific that you've learned since this was drafted that would be something we need to consider as an additional requirement?
No, the motion was drafted to ensure they have permission from Ryder Woods to do any further work on their property, to properly install erosion controls, to look to a professional wetland scientist to give them guidance on when and how to remove material and how to stabilize, and to make sure they had DEP protocols for threatened and endangered species in place before they did work. And on our standard additional motion, which says property owners shall obtain all permits included but not limited to inland wetlands planning and zoning and building required to resolve and legitimize the work on the site. So I don't believe there's anything we've heard this evening that would alter that proposed motion.
Okay, so Julie, if you could please read the motion. There's nothing additional we need to consider.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the cease and desist order IWC-25-0006, 0 Cascade Boulevard, be upheld and modified to order the violator to 1, obtain permission to access property of Ryder Woods Residents Association to remove material, stabilize, and mitigate the disturbed areas. Number 2, properly install soil erosion and sedimentation controls for the areas of dumping to prevent material from entering the wetland by 5/23/25. Is that a realistic date?
That's 2 days from today.
2 days from today. We're supposed to have rain for the next
Oh,
4 or 5 days. There might be a respite on Sunday. But I would rather have them attempt to put this in, seeing as Mr. Pucci has work crews,
Okay,
to properly get it in, to try to protect from any upcoming storms, then leave it sit and wait.
okay. Number 3, submit the following information to the Milford Inland Wetlands Office by June 2nd, 2025. That includes a report on the status of the wetland and stream adjacent to the disturbance, including any impacts from the dumped material, a proposed mitigation, stabilization, and planting plan by a professional wetland scientist, a proposed timeline for execution of the mitigation plan to remove material, plant and stabilize the disturbed area, including monitoring by a professional wetland scientist. Also, proper Connecticut DEEP protocols for threatened and endangered species to be used while working on these properties. The property owner shall obtain all permits, including but not limited to inland wetland, planning and zoning and building that may be required to resolve and legitimize the site work. That is my motion.
thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Julie. Ms. Valvo. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. Any further discussion on the motion? So I would just mention, I'm looking and I'm pretty sure this is the case. Tomorrow it's supposed to be very rainy, and the next day it's supposed to be very rainy. Nor'easter coming in. So I would just comment, it doesn't need to be an additional requirement, but Mr. Wassmer, I would encourage you to prioritize working with Mr. Pucci to address the soil erosion and sedimentation controls post haste.
Yes, I will.
So if there's no further discussion on the motion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Mary Rose, will you be able to communicate this decision to Mr. Pucci via email tonight?
I can, as soon as we're done with this, I'll send an email to both Mr. Wassmer and Mr. Pucci. Ron, the wetland scientist on this site was Matt Pop.
I believe the wetland scientist was Bill Kenny,
Oh, okay.
and the wetland biologist was Matt Pop.
So we'll copy both of them and see who wins that vote.
Sure. That's from memory. I haven't looked at the plans.
Well, and that was my problem. I thought it was I remember Matt doing a presentation, but I kind of thought Bill had done the flagging. So
That's correct.
should have asked him before he left.
I will call you in the morning, Mary Rose. You'll be in tomorrow?
Yes, I am. I've got meetings through 9 through 12, so either early or later.
I'll give you a call first thing, 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's good.
Just a 5-minute discussion of procedures, that's all.
Great. Thanks
Sounds-
very much for prioritizing that.
Yeah,
All right.
the deadlines for this were written so that we'd have some information for the next meeting. You know, just progress for the next meeting. I think the agency would be appreciative of.
I'd like to have just a quick discussion about the best way to install erosion control with you tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay? All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, please. Is that the staff report?
We've got minutes of the previous meeting.
Yes, minutes from the April 16th meeting.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve those as presented?
I'll make the motion.
There's a motion for Mr. Connors. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second from Ms. Valvo. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dan Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Thank you. And carries. Next item on the agenda. Staff report.
Staff report. So all these updates are in my notes. On May 5th, we had the DEP Army Corps of Engineers Hurricane Awareness Workshop at Jonathan Law. It was a good presentation. We had several members attend, as well as some other city officials and boards and commissions. Chairman was there as well, sorry. And the goal of the meeting was to give awareness of the dangers of hurricanes and to show resources available to predict and make safe from those hurricanes. The meeting was not recorded. I'm expecting the slide deck. When I get that deck, I will share it with the commission. The Yukon Center for Land Use Education and Research, also known as CLEAR, has some personal training coming up in October. It's basic training for new commissioners. Some of them are virtual, some are in person. I think they were about an hour and a half each. So there's a link to that in the notes. If you're interested in going, please let us know and we can register you so that we can cover that cost. And all other training as usual is up on our site. The community rating system, we've had a busy week with that. We did get our rating back from our submission in February. We had a 5-year annual visit in November. It seems like we did well on that. We're still waiting. It's in draft form, but it seems like we moved from a level 9 to a level 7, which is an improvement. We still have a few things to work out before we can get that grade. But we submitted some things, some elevation certificates in February, and those need to be reworked. Our CFM, the city engineer, is working on that, and we're going to have a meeting with the person from FEMA on that tomorrow, as well as on the rating system grade improvement. So it'll be a heavy CRS week for the rest of the week. Hazard mitigation plan working group. We should be having our biannual meeting in the next 6 weeks. And at that meeting, we go over the city's hazard mitigation action plan, things that we are in the process of doing or would like to do if we could find the right granting or funds to make improvements to our infrastructure, or to make the city more resilient to flooding or other hazards. And that plan is on our website and visible now. We updated it 2 years ago. We're already planning for the next update, and then it's a evolving program. We keep the action plan updated. Should we have a natural disaster and granting becomes available, we'll be able to implement those projects more quickly. If an item isn't on that plan, it doesn't mean we can't do it. It just gives it a little more gravity when we apply for a grant. MS4 was submitted on time, and Public Works is hopefully keeping track of things for the next submittal. There's been no real movement. I've been away for a week, so there's been no real movement on any other sites. We've got bunch of things circling that are going to start landing at the next meeting. So if you're not going to be here, could you please let me know, because quorum will become an issue. And that's all I have. Does anyone have questions for me?
Mary Rose, just in your notes, you mentioned that currently with the CRS program, we have the citizens who do require, who have flood insurance as a requirement, get a 5% discount on their premium. Is there an expectation that this new score, this improved score will increase that discount, or is that unclear?
No, should we be able to obtain the 7, there's a few other hurdles the city has until we can get that. Once we obtain the 7, the citizens will get a 15% decrease on their insurance, which can be significant.
That's great.
I had attended a webinar back in February, right before a lot of FEMA things got shut down, but research that it's been done, those FEMA lines that are put on the map, that says you're in the 100-foot or 100-year storm, or you're not, you're in whatever level. Those are based on a 50% margin. There was a movement to make that area larger, because if you notice, a lot of the people who are getting flooded aren't in the flood zones. They're outside of it because of the way they were mapped and the way storms are happening now. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. FEMA's in the process of being revamped. There's a committee that's looking at that. We'll see how that comes out in the fall. Currently, all training has stopped, or is very minimalized. May start again in the summer. So we'll see. But I would encourage folks to look at your flood risk, the new floodrisk.org and things like that give you a more realistic idea of if you may not flood. And you can get flood insurance if you're not in a flood zone, if you feel you may be at risk.
Great. Thanks, Mary Rose. Any further comments on Mary Rose's staff report? Okay. Moving on to Chair's report. Thanks for those who attended the hurricane preparedness session. Thought it was informative. Thanks also to Ms. Bavo for attending the CLEAR training this past Saturday, which I also attended and found very valuable. It was a 2-part program, one led by a fellow commissioner who has a lot of experience, but also he has expertise in wetland mitigation projects and design. And then there was an attorney who spoke around case law and things that we've considered and understood before and discussed, but just good to hear through that session. I don't know if Ms. Valley, if you want to add anything further to that.
I found it extremely informative, and some of it was review, and it was interesting to hear a different perspective. I highly recommend next time they do one that everyone, it's not a big deal to log in from home and do the Zoom. And I think it's a valuable resource for us to be able to make good judgments when these cases are brought before us.
Thanks, Ms. Salvo. Thank you again. Okay, the next meeting will be June 4th, right here on Zoom. Please let the office know, as Mary Rose mentioned earlier, if you are unable to attend. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion, and do we have a second?
I second the motion.
And second. Lisa, roll call vote.
Dan Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors, Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Yeah.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. Good evening.
Everyone have a good evening. Take
Good night,
care.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Stay
you.
dry.
Good night. Yes.